what's up guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 1981 Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser Brougham. Up front is a 3.8 liter V6, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Cutlass Cruiser Brougham for one main reason. It's old and cool. I've driven the Custom Cruiser, which was actually a different vehicle. That had the bigger V8, it was the full-size wagon. This was a little bit smaller, and so these were a little bit rare. This car in particular only has 40,000 original miles on it. However, it's a nearly one family car, and they didn't really care for it for most of its life. So it's a true survivor in every sense of the word, and I'm excited to share it with you. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 3.8 liter V6 under the hood. Well, it was the only V6 offered in the Cutlass Cruiser. You could find it with a lot of V8s, and even a diesel engine option was available in this car. However, this was the smaller V6. This is also the predecessor to what would later become adapted, changed, and modified to become the 3800 series from Buick, and an engine of much of Buick's fame. They've made it since the 60s, evolving it over time, but it didn't really hit its true reliable stride until the 1990s, but this is still a pretty good engine. Like I said, paired to it is a 3-speed automatic. Nothing really too crazy to write home about there, but it's here. Last but not least about the drivetrain, it is rear-wheel drive, and this was the final generation of Cutlass to be rear-wheel drive. As they moved into the 90s, they switched to front-wheel drive, and that's how they stayed until Oldsmobile met its demise in 2004. How's it feel to drive the Cutlass Cruiser? Well, it's a very nice ride. It has that floaty, bouncy ride that is so characteristic with other Oldsmobiles of the era. It genuinely does feel like the Custom Cruiser was put into a fax machine at 75%. Visibility is wonderful because you have really thin A-pillars and big windows. Steering is super light, almost over boosted, almost too light, which was very characteristic of 70s cars, and this really is kind of a holdover from that era, so understandable. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have my speedometer, gear, fuel, and odometer. That's it, clean and simple gauges. The steering wheel, nothing on it like that. Off to the left, we have our wiper options, headlight options, and a climate vent. And then moving out of the door, we do have power windows, which we'll talk about in a second. A Cutlass Cruiser badge, this really nice fabric, power mirrors, power locks, and more power windows for the rear. In the center, we do have an Oldsmobile logo along with a simple little clock. And down below, we have our climate controls for air conditioning and heat. This was an original AC car, although it has since stopped working. And we have the original radio, so we get knobs for volume and select, as well as some different favorites down below. We also get an ashtray, of course. This is the 80s, don't forget. And then moving up to the bench seat. It does get a bench seat across the front, which is one of my favorite parts of this Cutlass Cruiser. Love bench seats in old cars. Absolutely adore it. And I think it really is just stapled in the nostalgia of so many different people. But through all of this, we don't have any factory cup holders, so obviously it fails the big friggin' bottle test. I just want to note how lovely this interior is. I love the wood accents with the dark blue. There's just something about it that makes it feel like grandma's house. It makes it feel so warm and welcoming, and just, even though I wasn't born for another 16 years after this car was built, I feel nostalgic for it. I feel comfortable in it, and that's lovely. However, speaking of all of that, let's get into the back seat. All right, so we're in the back of the 1981 Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser Brougham, and a couple of things to note. First of all, not nearly the amount of space that you would have found in the Custom Cruiser, but that's to be expected. Knee room is okay. Headroom is pretty good. The headliner is sagging, so when you actually pull it up to where it's supposed to be, it's actually pretty good. And my knees, to be fair, are not touching the seat in front of me. Again, the Custom Cruiser is just a little bit bigger, and I do get ashtrays in the back of the front seat, so at least I could light up in here. But I would love to ash my cigarette out the window. Can't do that. This part, this little section right here, is the only part of the window that actually opens. Now, to be fair, it's power operated, but this is the only part that opens. This giant window, nothing. let's talk about the trunk space with another big window. All right, so around the back of the Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser, you can pull the glass up and you can access the rear trunk space just through the glass like that, which is fantastic. You can see all of this space. However, you then pull it even more and you get a tailgate. So when it is fully opened up, this is the entire rear trunk space of the Cutlass Cruiser, which is so cool. Tons of space. I'm sure so many people have stories of laying down back here with the family dog on a road trip, looking out the back window, things like that. We also do get the Oldsmobile owner's manual. This is original to this car. We can kind of flip through some stuff here, which is really, really cool material and something you don't see much of anymore. Let's see if we can do, there we go. It's a better flipping job by me. So super, super neat to get that. But overall, that is the rear cargo space of the Cutlass Cruiser. Bring this up and then be really gentle because you can easily shatter this, but bring it back down. There you go. That's the back of the Cutlass Cruiser. Now we got to talk about the looks, and obviously we do have this wood paneling down the side. I love the look of this vehicle, and it does have an El Camino rear bumper, so eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed that, but overall, it's just such an awesome, nostalgic vehicle with the wood paneling, the boxy shape, the big windows. I feel like everyone grew up in a car like this, and that is awesome to see. However, one thing I do want to note about the appearance is the front fenders and the hood. So, the owners, like I said, originally didn't care a whole lot for this vehicle, and so it sat in a garage for years and years and years, and they would use it for basically storage, and what they did is they put bags of rock salt on the hood. So, as it would get damp, it would run down the sides of the car, and it rusted the fenders out. However, the hood was untouched because it's aluminum. Now, this was not an option. The aluminum hoods were just luck of the draw. Some got steel, some got aluminum. There was no rhyme or reason as to why a Cutlass Cruiser got an aluminum hood or a steel one, kind of just down to the day or the worker installing it. So the hood and front fascia was actually spared because they're not able to rust. Kind of a cool little fact. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a 1981 Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser? Well, first of all, this has been an absolutely lovely nostalgic review. I love driving cars like this. This is my favorite era of car. It's my favorite genre of car. And so when Tony offered it up, I had to say yes. But I think this is an interesting look back at what the family trucksters were of yesteryear. Because today we have so many different SUVs and crossovers and minivans, but that wasn't the case back in the early 80s. We were still a couple years off from Chrysler really slamming home the town and country and making it a worldwide phenomenon of the minivan. This was the minivan before the minivan was the minivan. Take a shot every time I say minivan. Minivan, minivan, minivan. And to also be driving one that's not only low mileage, but was a true survivor. This was not a museum piece. This was held onto by a family. The owner, Tony, his aunt and uncle owned it since 1982. They bought it used with 19,000 miles, which is pretty wild to imagine the fact that half of the mileage was in this car's first year, and then it sat and collected the same amount of mileage in 43 years. That is pretty wild. But it was a part of the family. They put stuff on it. They stored it. It got them around and they took vacations in it, sure, but this is realistic. This is what family vehicles looked like back in the 1980s. And so if you didn't learn anything in this video, if you hate the sound of my voice, that's fine. I agree with you, but I hope that you at least enjoyed a nostalgic look back at sort of a forgotten wagon, one of the wagons that isn't talked about. We talk about the Buick Roadmaster. We talk about the old town and country Chrysler wagons, the Reliant K wagons, but I feel like the Cutlass Cruiser somewhat slipped through the cracks. And so today, I'm showing it to you in hopes of sparking a little bit of that memory. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Tony for letting me take out his Cutlass Cruiser. This is absolutely wonderful. Tony is a good friend of mine. We also did his 1970 Impala last year. So he is into the classics. He's young, but he's an old soul, and I appreciate him very, very much. We're gonna be working together on some other vehicles as well, so stay tuned here on the channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.